was like, there's no way that he made $30,000. He said he made $30,000 this month. And now if I make $30,000 in a month, I'm like disappointed.
Like with my wife, there were a couple things that you strive to reach and you hit it, but you're never satisfied. And I wanted to, I'm like, but I'm always looking at the next one.
Yep.
She goes, look, you're already stretching for the next race. You're always busting through these ceilings. You're always getting to the next level. But then to kind of sit back and look at what you're doing is also part of the journey, man. That's something that my team always kind of tells me to do. We're such visionaries, you know what I mean? Always on to the next. So I get it, dude. I get it. And I go, this is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. And just started kind of delving through the paths of real estate.
Invest with Trev.
Indeed I do.
How's it going?
Dude, it's going great, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm excited to have you on the podcast. I wanted you on because you have a unique investment strategy that I've never seen anyone else do.
I appreciate it.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before we get into that strategy, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. My name's Trevor. I own and operate a business called Buyer Beater. We're a Novations-based dispositions company. I'm an 8-year Marine myself. I ended up separating out of the service to focus on this full time. And it's been nothing but a blast with the team around me. And from the investment strategy that you're discussing, it's just due to the fact that we take our creative solutions for our sellers, we mold them into a strategy that we focus on funding deals that sellers are already on title with, and then we go and do that nationwide, man. So
got it. Yeah. So that sounded super complicated, but I guess let's rewind and go back for a little bit. How did you get into real estate?
So great question. I was about 5 years in the service in the Marines, and my wife said that she wanted to become a realtor. And I'm like, dope, you're pretty, go do it. You're gonna kill it. I had no inkling in getting into real estate at all. So I paid for a weekend seminar for her, and it was like $100. And that she's such an introvert, so the day of, she was like, I'm so not going to this. And I'm like, babe, I'm paid for this, you're 100% gonna go. She said no. So I'm like, screw it, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna see what kind of value we have. I'm gonna write notes for you, and I'm gonna tell you what to do so you can start your career. I go to the event, I come back, and I'm like, I'm gonna be a millionaire in real estate. This is the coolest thing I've ever been to. I was around a bunch of people, and I was at the event, and he said, who wants to make money? And out of everybody, I just rose my hand, and nobody else rose their hand. And so I sat up, I started talking, yada, yada, got some good connects from there. And that was more of the, on market, fold where I thought I was gonna become like a Ryan Serhant kind of guy,
Like a realtor?
Yeah, I was like, yeah, exactly. So from there, I met somebody else who did wholesale. And I said, okay, what's this? I started getting into it. And so I dabbled while I was still in active duty, in wholesale. Got super lucky where my first deal was like $6,000. I paid somebody $5,000 for mentorship. My second deal was $150,000. Like when I was in the service, and I go, this is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. And just started kind of delving through the paths of real estate, and I never looked back, man.
Okay. So I remember the very first time I heard about real estate, it was a realtor, and I asked him, how much do realtors make? And he was like, oh, we make like 50, 60,000 a year. And my mind was blown. Yeah. I was like, holy moly, you make 60 grand a year? Wow.
Sign me up.
Yeah. I was like, and you have one job? How do you do this?
Dude.
And then I remember I signed up for real estate school, and then one of the teachers talked about how he made $100,000 a year. And I was like, what? You make $100,000 a year?
Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
I didn't get it. And then I remember my mortgage broker, he told me, we were at dinner, I'm like a brand new agent. So you know how mortgage brokers, they take out realtors to try to get their business? Yeah. Try to be all friendly. And I remember he said he made $30,000 that month to someone else. He wasn't bragging about it. He was like, oh yeah, I did 30 grand. And I was like, 30?
This just keeps getting better.
Yeah, I was like $30,000 in a month?
Yeah.
I was like, there's no way. And then I swear to you, I was like, oh, he sells drugs. I was like, there's no way that he made $30,000. I couldn't believe it. I went home and I was talking to one of my friends. I was like, yeah, he said he made $30,000 this month. I just couldn't understand it. And now if I make $30,000 in a month, I'm disappointed. I'm like,
isn't that funny? Isn't that so? For the ceilings, brother, you just keep striving through. I mean, I totally get that, man. I just had that same inkling as well. With my wife, there were a couple things that you strive to reach and you hit it, but you're never satisfied. You know what I mean? So my wife told me something dope the other day, right? We did the same thing. We had a great quarter, and I wanted to, I'm like, but I'm always looking at the next one.
Yep.
She goes, look, you're already stretching for the next race. She's like, hold your medal up a little bit, kiss your babies. And I'm like, what a woman. I was like, you're completely correct. You know what I mean? So I kind of got to relish in it a bit, but that's the thing. You're always busting through these ceilings. You're always getting to the next level. I'm here. I'm doing the podcast. I'm like, dope. Now I'm going to speak next time. Now I'm going to do this. So I'm just manifesting everything into an existence. But then to kind of sit back and look at what you're doing is also a part of the journey, man. That's something that my team always kind of tells me to do. We're such visionaries. You know what I mean? We're always on to the next. So I get it, dude. I get it.
And I know this probably sounds like boohoo rich people stuff, but I remember when I became a millionaire, I finally became a millionaire, and I was just like, damn, like, I don't feel anything. I actually feel broke.
Yeah.
Because then you're scared to lose it. Now you're like, oh no, like, I don't want to be broke again.
What do
like
I do?
Yeah. It was super weird. I remember I called Alex Camacho. He was like one of the first people that I called, and I was like, dude, I'm a millionaire. And he was like, dude, how do you feel? I was like, dude, I feel broke. I feel like I don't have any money. I don't get it. So yeah, but all right. So let's go back to the real estate journey. You went to this event. You decided from there that you wanted to be a realtor or a wholesaler.
So I'll backtrack a bit, right? I'll give you like more of an in-depth where it really transitioned me. The event was mainly like an on-market play. Started talking about your VA loan. So I go, you know what? That's where I could probably start. So
When you say on market, it's a realtor.
It was like a realtor thing.
Okay,
More of an on market, talking about how to buy houses, what you should do, generational wealth through cash flow, all that kind of stuff.
Got it.
And so I was dabbling into getting my license, and then I just knew I was in the service, so I wanted to get my VA loan. And I started house hacking, right? So I was like, dude, if I just get a house, I can rent out to all my boys, you know what I mean? And just like make money doing that. Thought I invented that, and I watched like a Bigger Pockets podcast, and they're like, no, idiot, like this is called house hacking. I'm like, oh, didn't invent that.
You're like, I'm going to be rich. I'm not going to tell anyone
I'm going to monetize this, and then, because financial literacy is not taught in the service.
No.
And that's so unfortunate. Now we do all these things with, like Veterans for Wealth, Boots to Business, all the stuff that we're doing to give back because unfortunately, man, they're working 12, 15 hours a day or deploying. There's no time to use the benefits that you have. So I bought a couple houses, started house hacking, and I remember that was like my grind. I was like, we're gonna make some cash flow because you get BAH, you get basic allowance for housing in the service. So in the military, you get money guaranteed for rent. So that's why I was charging per room, my guys. I was like, you can get this part of the fridge, and you're gonna pay me $1,500 a month, right? And I rent out a couple rooms. But my wife was a baller. She was like good for a couple years doing that. We saved up a bunch of money. And I remember my father-in-law who, dude, Ed Milet, his talk yesterday, like there was not a dry eye, dude. I was bawling my eyes out, man. Because the day of your event is the day of my anniversary, but also the day that my father-in-law died a couple years ago. And he was like my father figure. I never had a dad, sob story, but he was always like, you're gonna be big, dude. Like, I love you. You're great for my wife or my daughter, And I'm like, dude, heck yeah. So he always believed in it. And I remember the last time I saw him, he was in one of my houses. And I was living in there, and I put a bed in the living room, bro. And I had one of my buddies there, and he was like, dude, I dig the hustle, but my daughter's not going to live in this for that much longer. You know what I mean? He goes, next time I visit you, you're going to have your own house, and you're going to get your shit together. And so now that he hasn't seen it, unfortunately, that always motivated me to be like, there is more to this. And so as I started leveling up, I got into other creative plays that can bring a lot more cash flow throughout the month, and that's where Novations came in for me. And I made Papa proud, man. So Papa Phil, dude, it's always cool to look back and be like, that's the wife and the life that my wife and her family deserves, man.
Yeah, so before we get to the real estate, so we had Ed Milet speak at WealthCon, so you have context, and he told a story about his father passing away. And I was sitting in the front because we paid him so much. I was like, I'm going to enjoy this. Usually I never watch. I was sitting there, and I remember at the end of his presentation, he would just have like breaks of silence. And during the breaks, you could just hear people, you could just hear people crying. Dude. And I look back and just men just bawling. And I was
sunglasses
crying.
On.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, I'll cry a little bit. And before I knew it, I was just fully crying. Bro. I almost moaned. I was crying. So I was like,
no, I heard it. Yeah. I was like, that's Brian's mom.
But yeah, I was just like so touched by what he said.
Mm-hmm.
So
his delivery is just, man, so good. It was great. I would pay for the entire event again for Ed.
yeah, it was yeah. To me, I was just like, wow, I wasn't expecting that because I've never seen him speak before. But if we talk about your father-in-law, like that motivation, like if you don't, do you mind sharing like how did he pass away or something?
Yeah, no, of course. You know, he was a healthy dude, aneurysm, right? So it was, you know, it was just, and that's the thing. Life is so tangible, dude. It's like gone in an instant. You know, somebody we were planning out, his birthday just happened, and it was a couple months after our wedding, and thank God we almost postponed our wedding because of the whole COVID thing, and he just was here, and then he wasn't. You know what I mean? And my wife's never dealt with a loss, like at all, and so she's never even had a dude like a dog. Like she still has like the same dog. It's like, do you use steroid injections? I have no idea how this dog's still living. And it was so hard on her. And so when I was in the service, I was 2 months away from deploying again, right, to the Middle East. And I asked my command, I go, look, because I was still going to do 30 years. Real estate was still on the side thing. Yeah. And when he passed, I'm like, man, I provide for my family with the service and I'm doing all this stuff. And now I have to deploy again. And I'm leaving my wife in shambles. So I talked to my command and I'm like, hey, I need to stay back. You know, my wife is not doing good. Mental health, like it's horrible. It's really hard. And they're like, dude, sorry. You know, no. You know, and so it's kind of a revolving door. You can do so much for the service. I'm not talking crap about them. I love the Marines, right? But there's a level where it's like, it's a very thankless, you know, sacrificial thing, which it is, you know, your government property. And so when I left, I just knew every day, it's like I'm doing something that does not benefit, you know, me and my family right now the way I know it should. And so when I was over there, I got my real estate hours, right, whenever I could log into the computers and everything. And I came back, I said, look, I'm going to drop papers, I'm going to get out, and I'm going to pursue real estate. I'm going to make the life I deserve.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So with your father-in-law, you use that as the motivation.
That was my building block, dude, yeah. That was like, that was something where, you know, just the support that I had from him and just what I wanted, you know, him to look down on, you know, what we're able to build. I just knew it. I mean, that was his only, he had 2 daughters, but that was the baby. She was like, you know, his baby. And so I'm like, you know what? I always strive to do something to impress him because he believed in me so much. He was like everything. It was just so much reassurance. And when I never got to, you know, climb that mountain with him. And so I always think about it, you know, still to this day, you know, but he is that determining factor. Plus, I'm like the biggest mama's boy you'll ever meet. So my mother also plays a huge part in this. You know what I mean? But he still is, man. He's still that guy for me. Yeah.
And I think when I first started, I had my like why, where I remember my mom struggling as a child. And that was my why. Like, I didn't care. I didn't even care about money.
Yeah.
I was like, $100,000, that's crazy. I could buy my mom a house with that.
Yeah.
So let's do that. So yeah, I think a lot of the people that I've met that have gotten very successful, they have like something like, it's money. And then eventually it turns to winning or just being great. But there's something that like sparks it all.
It's why you want the money.
Yeah.
You know, money is just an asset to be able to be utilized for that. And I'm still fighting with it right now. I don't know how, like with your mom, that's amazing. My mom still doesn't accept shit from me, bro. Nothing. She's such a blue collar woman. She's 51 years old. You know, she's in the prime of her life, and doesn't matter anything that I try. She's just like, she always feels like she just take care of me. You know what I mean? And it's unfortunate. So I'm just so working into that to be like, you know, I haven't done massive grand gestures yet, but I'm excited for her to be like, Mom, you can retire. Like, you can relax. That's my new thing now. You know what I mean? Make Papa proud. And then, you know, let my mom relax and just babysit my kid with, you know, a beer in her hand. Like, that's my plan for my mom.
Okay. So you started house hacking. Your father-in-law said, hey, you got to clean this up. Then what did you do?
From there, I was dabbling into wholesale at that time, right?
Okay.
So after he had passed, that's where I came into my first bulk of income, that $150,000. Never seen that money in my life, right? So I'm like, rich. You know, immediately, this is what we're doing. I can make this every month in wholesale. Wholesale's super easy.
So you started wholesaling, you made $150,000.
Dude, way too spoiled. Yeah. Like my first deal was $6,000 because when I had my license initially, because I went and I deployed, when I came back, I would look into wholesaling and I would look into listing afterwards, right? So it's like, hey, it's not a good wholesale deal. Disqualified the low anchor cash offer. I could still list this house. And then now you're listing properties that are sitting forever and it's not really helping your portfolio. I went to a property in Fallbrook, California, and it was initially from a texting campaign. they would not take my lowball offer. Excuse me. It could go into like a custom home, right? And so I went to list it, and he goes, I need to close in like 30 days. I'm like, dude, on the market, this is not going to close in 30 days. I said, but if I can get you down at this price again, like from my original offer, we can move forward. And I came like $50,000 less. And he goes, done. I need this done. It's contingent upon a house in Texas. And I was shaking, bro. I'm like, because I know I can move it. Some guy told me before, he was like, hey, I'm looking for this exact house. Like, this is what I'm doing. I met him at a meetup. If you do that, I'll close on it in a week, like all cash. This was like the perfect home for him. So, I'm like giving him the papers, and this dude's like signing. Called the guy up, and he goes, that's perfect. He goes, what's the fee on it? And I said, 150 grand. He goes, done. Literally just like that, dude. And from there, I then took that. I tried to put it back in the business, but it was still so new to me, So I was just doing all the wrong things, like all the time, man. I tried to scale way too quick. Like Clint said, came into it, and I was so top heavy that money was gone in an instant. You realize how quickly that money can get lost, and I had to kind of build myself back up through creative approaches.
Yeah. So I want to get into that story, but I have seen that a lot too, where in Wealthy Investor, we have students come in, they start doing well. Let's say they start getting deals from wholesalers and MLS. They start making good money. And then they get the bright idea of building a wholesale company.
Yeah.
So what do? They drop a bunch of money on marketing, a bunch of more money on, what do you think? It's one of the biggest expenses I see break students.
Building teams too quick, employees, callers,
education.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So they're already in education, but they spend a bunch of money on marketing. Then they go and pay for other big masterminds.
Yeah. And
the big masterminds tells them to hire employees. Yeah. And then before you know it, their revenue scales, but their expenses have also scaled.
Yeah.
And they're literally breaking even. And the problem that I've seen so many times is they think, oh, well, if I just make more sales, then eventually, even though I'm making 200 and spending 200, I will 2x eventually.
Yeah.
And that's not how it works.
And disclaimer, you don't.
yeah,
dude.
So let's go into detail if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You made $150K and you said you blew it. Like, what did you spend it on?
Private mastermind.
Oh, wow.
On a boat,
Whoa, how did I know?
I went there and I was like, he's doing what I want to do.
That, right? You
no
didn't
clue.
Tell me that.
I had no clue. Yeah, no clue at all, dude.
Uh-huh.
And I went in there, did that, and it was kind of reiterating what I was doing, but it came down to a position where it's like, you don't take any reserves into consideration, you don't take any bad quarters, bad months, all these things. And so I blew like 20 grand on that, right? Okay. Then we came in, and
That's more than 10% right there.
Yeah, dude.
That's already
legit way too much, you know what I mean? I hired out like 15 callers. Dude, I went hard. Like, it was kind of like, what are all the big guys doing without even looking at a foundation? You know what I mean? That's what I did.
Said that.
I know.
That's literally what I just said. And you didn't tell me your story.
You're like, I was that idiot. Yeah. I did that.
Okay, so education, you hired 15 callers. Yeah. Anything else?
I hired somebody to manage those callers, right? Okay. So I had an acquisitions manager that came into it. Then now it comes down to lead gen. What do I do? Do I want to do texting? I heard PPC is phenomenal. I want to go into the, Google, all these things. And so I'd go, let's try it all, see which one sticks. And I didn't really back test it correctly. And the next thing you know, I'm a couple months in. And like you said, things are coming in, right? Mm-hmm. But then now there's the educational piece. I'm great on the phone, but I didn't really train them because now I'm working up here. So my whole thing of education, I didn't lay that foundation with my acquisitions manager. I didn't level my expectations with them. I didn't hold them accountable the way I should. Mm-hmm. And so that means things are falling through the cracks. And I'm getting upset at them. And they're like, bro, you're not letting me know what to do because you're trying to do so many things. My hands were in so many cookie jars. And things just kept slipping through the cracks, man. You know, and so that's kind of where most of the money went. I'd say I had about $60,000 left, right? Mm-hmm. And then that $60,000 to transition into kind of what I do now, right? Mm-hmm. I got into Pace's community too. This is before, the Wealthy Investor. That's a funny story. I got a good Wealthy Investor story. And I was kind of hearing about sub 2, seller carry stuff, yada, yada. And I heard about Novations, but not when you put money into it, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to these homes. And I walked this property, and it was an Air Force cat. He was like, dude, property's vacant. I got to go. I was going to list it, and I was like, would you be open to a novation? It's something where I come in there, I can list it. You want a certain amount? Yeah, I did that too.
Yeah.
And it was worth about 400. He wanted like 330. So I was like, we can list it at 360. You know what I mean? I can come in there. Maybe I'll clean it up a little bit. And I said, you know what? What if I just fully renovated this thing for you? You don't have the money. The floors weren't even done. So I was going to list a home that was like, meh. You know what I mean? And I said, what if I put money into this? I give you a guaranteed $330,000. Anything above that, I'll keep, as a return on my investment. He was like, dude, sweet, like done. I called I was like, I have a team. I got everything. I had nothing, dude. I didn't even know. I tried to put blinds in that house and I broke them. I'm like, I'm not a fix and flipper. You know what I mean? So I called my buddy from Arizona. I was like, hey, I got some beers for you. Come on out. I need your help, kind of redoing a house. And he was like, done. And I served with him. I flew 3 people out, all have their, GC's license, all in construction, that I served with throughout my time in the service. They came in, and in 10 days, we renovated that house. We sold it for $405,000, and we made like $50,000 on like $12,000. So I was like, this is where I want to be, because I like that. It wasn't a good low anchor deal. It wasn't a good listing. It was that kind of a limbo period where I know I can salvage the deal, work sellers into their equity, utilize my own money, and I can kind of capitalize on this because I think I'm really resolving an issue for people who are in that transitional phase. That's where I came up with Buyer Beater.
So you came up with your strategy on your own.
Yeah, and once again, I'm like, I'm a genius. I did this. I talked to Pace about it. He goes, yeah, dude, like you could put money into it, like I do it all the time. I'm like, God damn it! Like, I'm not that. I'm a pioneer. Damn it, you know what I mean? And but it's so cool because then now you understand the nuances, and so most of them, now we're putting $200K into properties and stuff. You know what I mean? Crazy. We got 15 a month, usually 15 to 20, and some we don't. Some we don't, but most of the time we do the equity split model.
Got it. Yeah. Okay, so with that first guy, how much money did you make from that deal?
Sold it for 405. After, because we in-house the realtor fees and it was closing costs, like a point and a half. So it was like 11.8 of renovations, and we made about $55,000 on that deal.
Oh, okay.
Which was like my whole year, my last year in the Marine Corps, right? So I was started coming in because, you did a couple other wholesales, and my average was around that $10,000 mark. But I'm averaging offering sellers $60,000, $70,000 more and like 5Xing my fees through the novation method from just deals that didn't work. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what I try to capitalize on now. Yeah. So my 11 made about 50.
Got it. 11 made 50. Okay. So you did that, and then what did you do after?
I revisited all of my CRM. I went in there and I told my team, I scaled down because I don't need that, because the nuance of the pitch was like, you have to really you can't memorize it. Like creative finance is like, you have to be able to understand it and digest it and like speak to a seller, and not from like a level of education. It's just such a different pitch. You know what I mean? So if you talk to a seller incorrectly with creative finance, they hear terminology, they get turned off. They don't want to do it because it just sounds weird because it's so different. Yeah. So I just stopped with my entire team. I fired 15 of the callers that we had, and I called
my. Keep one?
Dude, I didn't keep one, bro. I feel bad. There was one I really liked. I actually gave her to a buddy of mine, and they're like killing it, which is amazing. And I just called all my dead leads, and I said, hey, look, it's Trevor, because you build good rapport with them. They like you. They think you're funny. You're talking to them for 45 minutes, and they're like, what's your offer? And you're like, you're not going to like it. You know what I mean? It's not going to be good. And then they're like, kick rocks. You know what I mean? It's like, damn it. So I just called them back, and I'm like, yeah, Brenda, you know what I mean? What's up? And I told them this, and they were like, this is great. Let's do it. And I just found immediate success revisiting those dead leads and pitching my creative service because I believed in it so much, and I thought it was so cool. And I was doing it without like proper backing. And then as a couple deals come in, it is, there's a lot of the back end that you got to do with novations. And, you take some on the chin, but for the most part now it's like full autopilot and it's a blast.
Yeah. So when you were scaling your novations, what were some of the big wins and then some of the hardships you had to go through?
My biggest win was my biggest hardship. That one was about a little over 50. The second one was a little over 30, right? And so that was like within a couple months. So I'm like, all right, it's like, I'd never seen that, right? Yeah. I'm averaging like $40,000 a month, you know, and I'm like, this is insane. So my third one, it was It was in LA, it was in Sunland, California. And it was a dead wholesale deal, right? And I called her again, and I want to say her name. And we get into it, and I go, I can finally offer you what you want. I was at 800, I can go to 900 now. She lived in the house, right? She was a kindergarten teacher, lived in the house. She had 2 Great Danes. And I'm like, I could do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, look, we're going to fully renovate your home. I'm not going to move you. We're just going to move you around the house.
Yeah.
And we're going to renovate this thing to 2021 HGTV standards at that time. And she was like, I'm down, because she needed the money.
Yeah.
Right. So we reinstated her mortgage. She was in pre-foreclosure. So I put like 30 grand into that, reinstated the mortgage. Property needed about $90,000, right? Which I didn't have, right? I was like, should I take all my profit, or should I reach out to some buddies? And I did. I sourced capital. A lot of people that believed in me, my mother-in-law. I mean, I had a really good corner, right? And so I put money into the home. Dude, I moved her from room to renovate it with my buddies, bro. Like, it was just like me, a couple, and this thing, imperfect action is better than perfect non-action. You know what I mean? In a sense. So I'm so glad I did it to learn from it. But I do not advise this. You know what I mean? Just due to the fact that this was my biggest novation to date, actually my second now. But we were restaining the floors I didn't pull a preliminary title. I didn't look at any clouds on title. I looked at none of that, bro. And so when we started getting a couple months into it, I'm like, this is a lot. I removed 9 tons of trash from this house, Brian, 9 tons, and come to find out that there was somebody who lived in the back who I never saw. And I'm like, is someone living in your ADU? And she was like, no. And I'm like, no, there's definitely somebody who's living here that comes at night. And he was her ex-husband. He was a tweaker. He was on drugs really bad, and that's super sucky, right? So I meet him, and there's no water, no electrical to that back ADU. And that was a big selling point. I wanted to renovate it. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to pay you in order to relocate? Unfortunately, we got to have you move, yada, yada. And he was like, $50,000, and I'm like,
no way.
Yeah. I was like, I'll give you 5. And he was like, done, the easiest thing ever.
You're a good negotiator.
I know. He was ready to go. But as we moved him out, come to find out, in Los Angeles, we were a month away. So anyway, it goes good. We removed 9 tons, about 90 grand. I'm all in about 990. I sell it for 1.129, right?
Okay.
So over 100% cash on cash. It went good, but we were in the middle of closing, and I didn't check title again. The guy that we kicked out was still on title.
Oh.
The homeless dude, that was her ex, through adverse possession, remained on title. So I had to find a private investigator, bro, to go find this dude around LA.
No way.
Swear to God, right? And so I'm like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? There has to be a better way. So I come to find this guy, same thing, bro. I go, do we found him? And it's really unfortunate, because where the money does go, right? I believe the $5,000 could have been used for things you shouldn't use $5 grand for, Mm-hmm. So I see him again, and he needs more money, right? And of course, so I'm like, all right, what do you need? And he was like, 50 grand. And I'm like, 2,500. He was like, done. You know what I mean? Like back to back, dude. And I get him, and that was a day before they were going to cancel. We got him over. I had to drive him 2 hours to the property, sign, give him the money in an envelope. And I'm like, through the hair of my chinny chin, dude, that deal went through. And I just finally was like, I need to systematize this better. So that was my biggest win, because that was over 100 grand, made it. So I'm like 7 months deep in the business, made over $180,000. Never seen that money before, but it came with the biggest headaches. And that's where I'm like, let me set a better foundation. I need to understand this before I decide to keep doing it.
Yeah, so it's funny because you almost relearn lessons over and over again in life. And everyone always talks about processes, right?
Yeah.
And then in the beginning, you're like, F a process. I'm here to make money, right? And then later on.
I'm different.
Yeah.
Built different.
Yeah. I'll just freaking force my way to success. And you can do that. You can do it. I've done it. You've done it. Mm-hmm. A lot of people have done it. But then in hindsight, if you would have just learned a basic process of check the prelim, see who's on title, check if there's liens, you would have saved so much, I bet you, emotional damage and stress and running around. And
which is pretty basic stuff to actually do, dude. Everything you just should do. I'm like, nope. Yeah. I'm going to park my family's money into this bad boy. Wild.
Yeah. So, because we're going through, process issues. And I actually learned this from Gary Harper, where it's like, to scale, you need people and process, right? And you could have great people, but if they're following the wrong process, you won't scale.
Yeah.
And that story is an example of great person, great salesperson, hard work ethic, risk taker, all this stuff. And it ended up good, but just a simple process of checking the prelim, getting with the title, doing all, I mean, I'm sure there's more.
Yeah.
But just that one thing could have saved you a lot. Because I bet you had some stressful days.
100%, And then it boils down to the same thing that Clint was talking about and everyone's talking about, because the emotional stress is, this is my business. I brought my boys out. They're going to get a portion of this as well, but nobody cares about your money or your business as much as you. So now I'm hounding my guys. We're not partners. I brought them in to get a portion of this. And so they're not dealing with the nuances of like how this might completely change my life horribly. You know what I mean? They're just kind of like, am I getting paid? Like, when am I getting paid? Let's go out, And I'm like, dude, no, like, we need to do this. But they're like, what? Come on, man. I'm like, brother, you know what I mean? So it actually ruins some friendships. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, bleeding that personal and professional line, because like you just dive head first, exactly what Clint said, with your boys.
Yeah.
And it can, unfortunately, impact things negatively. And, a couple years later, they came back, and as they try to start their own business, they realize, they're like, I'm sorry, because you understand the stressors of it. So that was really cool. It's a happy ending on that. But just so many different things that you forget that entrepreneurship does for you right away, because you are that go-to. You take all the punches, you're where the rubber hits the road, and you have to get thrown into this role where you can just melt like super quickly, man.
Yeah. So, all right. So you do that 100 and how much did you make?
1.129. I had an agent that came in on that. My 90 made like 100, like net.
Okay, 100.
Yeah.
About 100.
It was a couple years ago, so I don't have the numbers.
Okay. So you get that 100K check, and then what do you do next?
I go back into the basics again, right? So we come into it. I trim the fat on, fortunately with some buddies that were around, I kind of go into the nuance of Novations. That's where I kind of went very in depth and kind of paces stuff. I kind of looked into what we can do, and I kind of went back into capitalizing back on the Novation model. And so from there, I would do, it wasn't a massive scaling thing for me. Remember, this was just kind of like, I was really comfortable. Me and my wife, I would just do a couple a quarter, make good money, but it was never like, I'm going to build something huge, initially. Until, I had somebody approach me, probably in like 2022, and they were like, can you teach me this? It was a wholesaler. They were doing really well in Florida. It became a great friend of mine. And I'm like, yeah. And he was like, I'll pay you 10 grand, right? And I'm like, okay. So I started doing, I accidentally stumbled into like mentorships, right? So I'm like, yeah, which is not a bad thing to get into.
Yeah.
Did that, that was a testimonial, and it was just private mentorships, like a couple of quarter, turned into JVing with them on deals because, I had the funding to be able to come in. They still wanted to, their hand to be held on these deals. And as it kind of came into something, I just started doing more than a couple a month, and it turned into a lot more. And then it just kind of ever expanded, and then you started growing the team. And that's when I decided to coin buyer beater, because a lot of them, they don't want to learn how to fully do it. They just want to have it in their tool belt. So they're like, Trev, I got a Novation, man. Can you knock it out for me?
Yeah.
So I just kind of built a dispositions team, and I haven't done 0 acquisitions, but I do nothing for marketing. It's just the community and wholesalers and, your community members that come in, and they're like, hey, I think this is a great Novation deal, but I don't want, they fire and forget. They find the deal, we fund it. That's our whole slogan, right? So we come in there, we partner with you on the equity, we fund everything. And that's been a cool thing, to just add something onto wholesalers and flippers and realtors' tool belt. And that way they can just kind of let our team, the professionals, take care of it, who do this for a living, and then them get the upside afterwards.
Got it. I guess, what were some of the challenges you went through scaling your business? The Novations business.
Legalities, right? Different states, attorney-based states, you know what I mean? Because it's so nuanced still that, it's kind of old dogs, new tricks, right? Some realtors, they're like, wait, what do you mean you're not on title? You have an attorney in fact, that means you can sign on behalf. It just sounds weird, right? That's where it comes down to letting other people digest it. Like I always say to my salespeople, you have to be able to say it to a second grader. And if they understand it, then you can definitely talk to other people. And that's not, like I said, it's not an educational thing. It's just, you have to come at it with the right terms, the right approach, the right energy, because it's such a different model.
Yeah.
So coming into it, there's a lot of people in 2023 that still aren't open to the idea of creative because they want to go so conventional, so traditional, things that they know, and it's really hindering their business. I think in 2023, man, creative is the way to go. I thoroughly do, for your own personal portfolio and for business, for everybody to make money. So I would say still elaborating to have these opportunities for sellers and for our agents has always been ever expanding and something that we always have to kind of hurdle over.
Got it.
Yeah.
What was that funny story about joining Wealthy Investor?
Oh, yeah. So my first event was Hollywood, right?
Okay.
Met you, I interviewed you.
Really?
Dude, actually, I need to interview you again. Everybody always imagines, like, where's your interview with Brian? For our we got to do our third one. Yeah, that was my first event, dude.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I went there, I had no idea about anything. I was like, this is a dope event. I heard from somebody, dude, I don't even know how I showed up, but it was like, this is legit, right?
Yeah.
So I came, and I wasn't an all-star. I was just somebody, right, sitting down. And I heard about this. I went in the room, and I heard about everything you guys are doing, and I'm like, sign me up. Talk to Roham, right? And I'm like, take my money. This is dope. I'm going to make it back. And this is kind of the networking piece. So when it came into it and I started talking with you guys, I'm like, you manifest. You kind of come into things. Maybe it's not too crazy of a funny story, but the reason why I'm saying this is to do the fact that my business was not up and running at that time. Like I was just kind of doing me. All of Buyer Beater came the day after WealthCon started.
Really?
Swear to God. I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to scale the shit out of this thing, dude. I was super motivated, man.
Let's go.
And so
I didn't mess up the audio.
people that work for me, 3 people, came from that event. Like I met them there. So like Peter, my project manager, he does my short-term rentals and my project management nationwide. I met him because I accidentally took his beer at a bar, right? And I'm like, hey, man, I'm new. He's like, I'm new too. He runs a lot of Airbnbs. So my 26, whatever my investment to come in to be able to pay for a wealthy investor, I have multiple Airbnbs now that have cashed me out twice that just by meeting one person. You know what I mean? So I'm like, this thing pays for itself, dude. If you talk to the, you talk to network. You know what I mean? Like your network is your network. Yeah. So that was dope, and that's why I'm always like I owe you guys more money. I just like what do I do? You know what I mean? And then, you've been great. So you've given some Novation, cats over to me as well. Yeah. But that's why we go to these things, you know what I mean? And it's unfortunate, dude, the people that come in and they pay this money, they come in and it's like, just talk to somebody. Just
literally
legit
just have a conversation.
Just do it, dude. Because I'll always, when I do the Wednesday calls, this is not a knock because I have a lot of people that love them. They're big. People love this stuff that I'm doing. Do you have any questions? And I know so many people do because I put my email down and my assistant comes, they're like, dude, you got like 20. I'm like, what the hell? Just turn your camera off and just ask the question, please. You know what I mean? So that's what's unfortunate. But at the same time, I think it's a good accountability call because then I go on the next call and I go, Tammy, this was your question. Let's elaborate a little bit. Tell me why you have that question. So you force them to come into their nature, which helps them out. You know what I mean?
Can I give you some, because you are one of the coaches, so can I give you some coaching advice?
Please.
So I've done a lot of coaching calls, and in the beginning it was rough. I'm rough around the edges, and I could be direct and kind of you know what? Mm-hmm. So that was my issue, and then sometimes I'd be like, how do you guys just not get it? I don't get it. It's so simple. This is how you wholesale, or whatever the case may be, right? But then slowly I started learning better and better. And then, you have good coaching calls when people tell you oh, that was really good.
Absolutely.
And then sometimes you'll have some where you're like, oh, that was not good. That was rough. I was hungry. That's even another thing. I realized I was like, if I go into a coaching call hungry, more than likely it's not going to be good. It sounds so
open your mouth.
Yeah. It sounds so simple, but seriously, going into it with the right mindset. But what I like to do is I'll explain something on a coaching call, right? I'll say, hey, this is what sub 2 is. This is the contract. This is this. This is this. This is this. How many of you guys got it? Okay. How many of you guys did not get it? And I'm going to not say anything until someone raised their hands. I say that to them. So I'm not going to just be like, did you guys all get it? All right, cool.
Yeah.
So, and then I'll just pause because it always takes a minute for people to finally ask a question. Yeah. Always. No matter what, it always, I ask and I have to wait. So I'll wait and then they start asking questions and then I'll be like, okay. And then I'll go into it more And then what I do is then I'll pick someone on there. I'll be like, all right, Trev, explain to me what I just said.
I love that.
And then they'll explain it wrong sometimes. And then I'm like, okay, you're close. And then I'll explain it again.
Yeah.
And then I literally just pound the crap out of the subject until there's still going to be people that don't get it, but there's going to be so much more clarity, because when you ask someone to repeat back to you what they learned, that's how you truly know if they understand it. Because sometimes they'll say stuff and you're like, no, you didn't get it, and that's fine. Where they think they got it, that's why they're like, no, I think I got it. But then having them explain it back to you has been a game changer for me. I even do it with our sales team.
Smart.
Yeah, our admin team, we had a system for WealthCon check-ins, right? I was like, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. Okay, Susie, like, show me. Oh, it's not in my thing. I was like, oh, you're in the wrong place. Let me go back. Here it is. Okay, now you show me, Jocelyn. You have to have them like take the action, not just listen to it.
And it allows them to teach on their terms too.
Yes.
That's the best, because they might not get a certain position of what you're saying, but when they start teaching it back, then they go down a road that makes sense for them as they speak it, and it just clicks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that for me has been huge, because like I remember just when I became a coach, right? I was just a raw real estate investor. I did not have any Ryan didn't give me any training. And that's why I tell people sometimes too. I'm like, you guys don't get it, because I came from bad environment into wholesaling and flipping, which can be a crazy environment.
Yeah.
Like we could talk
Very
about some
lucrative,
stories.
Yeah.
Very lucrative, but very crazy. Like you're dealing with tweakers, you're dealing with contractors, you're dealing with like all these things, right? These other investors trying to rip you off, homeowners lying to you, all this stuff. So I went through that hundreds of times. And then to a service business where you're like teaching people and helping them and stuff like that. So I always tell people, like, dude, like I had to go through a transition, because I was freaking nuts. I would I would explain something. Someone's like, I don't get it. I'm like, how don't you get it?
Yeah. What do you mean?
Yeah. But okay, so I guess like, what does your business look like today?
So we are, ever expanding. We call ourselves, a nationwide dispositions novations company, right? Our whole thing is to kind of utilize us as a stepping stone for other people's businesses to transition their dead deals into profit through creative solutions, novations, right? So our whole thing is educationally based, right? The community that we have, if you have something that doesn't work for you, you're going to bring that deal to us, and we're going to funnel it directly through what we have. We're going to verify if it even makes sense for a novation model, right? We look at about 70% cash on cash. And then from there, we target the sellers. We don't need you to close. That's everything. Like with your all-star community, they're great because they'll throw deals our way. We just need a good opening to see if they're open to creative terms. And then we have my guys get on the phone, lock it up, and then from there, we then attach you to the equity of what we have. So I always tell people, especially in the business that we're in, is if it's a wholesale deal, do the wholesale deal. Like, do it. But if it's outside the scope of what you have, bring it over to us. And I would just say, we were, privately based for a while, and now it's just an ever-growing community of just people who are interested in allowing them to have a novation leg, but wanting to give the reins to somebody else so that way they could focus on their passion and their product. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where we're at. We just want to be able to enlighten and complement other people's positions in real estate to help them out.
Okay, and like, what does your org chart look like exactly?
Like, what do you mean?
Like, what does your team look like?
Oh,
because I'm sure there's like, novations are very complicated.
Yeah.
It's not an easy strategy. It is easy, but for someone who is doing it by themselves and are new to real estate, it is very complicated.
Very tough.
Yeah.
Very tough.
Now, what does the team look like?
So when you come in and you have a deal, right, you submit it through a deal submission form. We have now our deal verifiers. So we have a whole department that's going to be geared towards vetting these deals all day to identify if it's something that does make sense. From there, it gets pushed to our lead acquisitions team, and they're the ones who call, right? They get on the phone, they lock it up, or they approach the nuance of novations, get them open to the idea. And then from there, once you get a contract signed, that gets directly to our agent outreach coordinator, right? He runs the entire industry of the on-market approach. So he's the one, if it's going to be in Las Vegas, he's going to identify an agent that's listed local properties to that property. That's like a subject, like a comparable property to the one that we're trying to novate. Identify at least 3 different CMAs that's going to be get for our comparables. Target what we can do, on like what we could list it at. And then he also goes and finds contractors with Peter, our project manager. So it goes verification, our acquisitions, closers, agent outreach coordinator. Like you said, there are so many legs of Novations, man. Agent outreach coordinator, project manager, and then our transaction coordinator takes it with all the information that we have, the licensing verification of the contracting, goes to our
Hold on. Because so much.
Dude, I'm like, there are people, but that's why we do it for others.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So, okay, so you got acquisitions. Salesperson talk to someone, gets them under contract. Then you have an agent outreach person that they're not going to list the property, but they're going to find someone to list the property.
Local listing agents that perform well in that industry. I don't skimp out on agents. I want somebody local that knows what they're doing.
Okay. And then from there, that person that's doing agent outreach, are they the ones that are in communication with the seller the whole time?
Yes.
Okay, so they're almost like acquisition or account managers where they're working with the realtor and the seller to make sure everything runs smooth.
So they call the seller. They go, hey, this is Hector, your agent outreach coordinator. I'm going to be the one that's going to be focused on, taking this deal to the on-market approach to allow you to be able to get the sale price that you want. This is going to be the situation that we're in. This is going to be our, they're going to kind of go over the whole process of what the listing agent said and how we're going to take over the process with them so they can kind of kick their feet up and wait for their price, right?
Got it.
It's kind of we call it our marketing, maintenance, and management fee. Like it's a one-stop shop for our sellers. I just want you to be able to kick your feet up, allow us to do our process, and we're just going to keep you updated so that you understand kind of what our scope of work is and when we plan on wanting to close or start work. And then we just kind of update them with photos and everything, depending on if they're local or not.
Yeah.
And then we have our project manager, who's the one that works directly with our contractors, right? Depending on if we need a bunch of work. If it's just a couple $1,000s, we will still have him manage it, but that's pretty quick, But then if it comes down to a lot, like a couple months worth of renovations, that's when they come in there and they're talking with contractors all day, getting scope of works, updates, and all that fun stuff. And that's a huge job for my 2 project managers.
Got it. So your project managers, they work nationwide then, right? So they are finding contractors all over the country.
Oh yeah.
How do they find contractors? I feel like that's the hardest thing to do.
Craigslist. I'm kidding. So a lot of the people that we've built, have come in from referrals, right? There's wholesalers everywhere. We have a pretty good connection. The listing agents that we work with a lot, we're very connected with, like Tom Ferry and his inner circle as well. So a lot of them have people that they've already worked with. Like as an agent, you've been a top performer for 15, 20 years. Yeah. You have somebody that you've worked with, right? So the agent helps project manage the deal as well, kind of boots on ground in that area. And they refer out that contractor. We verify the license. We go over everything accordingly. And then we get a couple bids in. And then we usually go with one that comes highly recommended. And then we go under contract with them.
Okay, so that makes sense. And then project managers, and then and then a TC.
Yeah, TC. That's they do everything though. So the agent outreach coordinator mainly updates the seller, but the TC comes in, and with Novations, you open up escrow right away because of your position on the property, and then you have a couple months usually that you have to deal with escrow throughout the process. So you're just kind of updating them. You're giving them, the receipts that we have, our bid out requests, if we did pre-releases. So they're working with our escrow companies nonstop every day.
Okay, and then is that it?
And then there's me.
What do you do?
Dude. Yeah, I mean, the overhead, the whole management, you're always kind of building out the brand of where you want it to be. So just the delegation, right? So you're coming in here understanding where you want to hit, the numbers that you want to hit. And I think community growth is my main focus right now because we don't do any acquisition spend. So I want to come in there and I want us to be able to understand, and let people know how we complement their business and allow our service to be able to help them. And that's kind of my job. I kind of want to be that person to be able to let them know how we can help and how we can define their business to make money off their dead deals.
Got it. Okay, man, that was a lot. That was crazy.
Yeah.
Very similar to a realtor business. So I used to be a realtor, and I had a TC. We had an admin that would talk to the sellers and help. We had a photographer. like you said, I had contractors where it's like, oh, the roof's leaking. Oh, call this guy. Like, because you just slowly through time, you just need them.
Yeah.
So yeah, very interesting. How I get the part where the acquisition people are calling the sellers, right? But how are you guys getting the leads to call the sellers?
Through our community, right? People who join Buyer Beaters community, we teach them what a novation is, right? And these are all pre-existing wholesalers, fix and flippers, and agents, right? So I want to identify what even would make a good deal for us right now, right? So if you have a property on the wholesale, fix and flip, whatever, and it could be worth $500,000, right? Could be worth 500. You know it's going to need $50,000 worth of work that's going to go into the home. You're going to come in there. That's a lead that you've already gotten from your campaigns. You know, you've built that rapport with the seller. They need to sell. You target the 4Ds, debt, distress, divorce, and debt, right? You're focusing on one of those through your campaigning. You're offering 280, right? If you look at, the typical wholesale formula, you're going to offer around 280. Seller goes, kick rocks. I need 350. That's just a dead wholesale deal. So what we teach the community to do is say, you know what? What if I could guarantee you $350,000, but I work directly with a company that focus on a creative finance formula that's going to come in there and position themselves in the property with their own financing. Any appreciation they create through the renovation of your home, they're going to list it, take care of everything, all the marketing, the maintenance, the servicing, the listing fees, and the closing costs, and whatever's left over is going to be their return, but you're going to be a guaranteed certain amount at close of sale. And if they can open the idea to do it, or even like some of the all-star cats are like, I got a company that can work, that could definitely get you 350, like throw it on over. And so if the seller's open to those kinds of terms, that's when we get, our phone calls are very warm. Like they've identified now what we do. They just need to know how we do it, right?
Yeah.
So the community that we have is just giving us deals that don't work for them, and then we're able to attach them to the equity of those on the back end when we do end up taking these deals on.
Got it. Okay. So what are some of the struggles with this strategy of doing it across the country? Because I feel like
nothing is perfect.
Yeah, I'm like, I feel like you're crazy.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I feel like it's so hard already to flip houses.
Yeah.
So to do it across the country, I have never heard anyone do that.
So we actually turn down a lot of deals because, in Novations, we're not on title, right? Sometimes we'll do power of attorneys, right? There's ways that we can position ourselves, to be able to sell the home or attorney in fax or anything on that. But if we don't get a good vibe from the seller, maybe they're kind of offsetting, maybe the numbers make sense, but they're not, they don't understand how we're really helping them out, we don't take that deal. Right? So it's a collaboration. We want to be on the same side of the closing table with that seller, and we want at the close of sale them to be like, I know exactly what they did, and they really, really enhanced this selling process and gave me what I want, and they were a blessing to me. That's the sellers that we need. So if we're coming into it because we have to work so closely with them, if they have a great deal, and we just get that vibe that, they're very distant, they're trying to corner us in this position, which just means that they don't understand how we're really benefiting them, then we'll turn the deal down. So the reason why I say that is, the headache really would come mainly from the seller, but because they love what we do, we get a lot of communication from them, a lot of feedback, a lot of insight from them, the market, and a lot of referrals. Hopefully that kind of answered. I think the other level would mainly be like, people always think the contractors and everything, but we are picky about deals that we do. It's not like if you're in some place and,
Ohio.
Oh, like legit, and we've never heard
Ohio,
of it. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do that deal. If days on market are crazy, we're over there and we're like, the next house is a comparable 17 miles away. We're not going to do it, And we get that all the time. They're like, if you just put 3 more bedrooms on this thing, and it's like, what? You know what I mean?
If you add a second story,
it'll be insane, dude.
I miss talking to sellers because they would say some crazy stuff. I'm
wild.
Like,
wholesalers do the same thing, dude.
I know.
Wholesalers are like, I'm like, your asking's 9 and it's worth $850.
They're like, if you convert the garage illegally, that's another 500 square feet.
So true, bro. There's a lot of basketball players, right? Just put a basketball court in the backyard. So I would say, the nuance is we focus congested cities, people where days on market's about 30 to 40 days or less. And when we target listing agents around the area, we ask how many offers that they've received. And if it's less than 3 on properties, then we don't go in that market because we want to, basically what we want to do is reverse engineer that. So we go, okay, well, hey, Mr. Listing Agent, we have a property that's, very comparable to yours. We want you to be able to list it. We're going to fully renovate the home. Did you have other competitive offers on the property you just sold? And they go, yeah. If you get those buyer's agents on the phone and let them know that we have something for you, those buyers come over and we can customize the home that's going to gear towards them. That way we don't even have to have an on-market approach at all. So a lot of our homes that we do sell, like Orlando, a lot of Texas, a lot of Southern California, buyers come in and I go, do you have a daughter? Yeah, why don't we do a pink accent wall? What kind of quartz countertops do you want? So it's like a Barbie dream house that we customize for this person that's already pre-approved, ready to loan on, and they have a property that there's no competitive edge, and we're just going to get it at full asking, and they don't have to bid out anybody else.
That's crazy. So, I think we covered everything, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
I think so.
That's a lot. So if people want to reach out and find you, where do they go?
They're going to go to @InvestWithTrev on Instagram.
Okay.
I'll reach out to everything. If they want to be able to go and look into the buyer beater community, they can do, they can go to deals@buyerbeater.com or contact@buyerbeater.com. They'll get in front of myself and my team. We can kind of go over a bit, do a strategy call. If you want to get a little bit more insight as a listing agent or a realtor or a wholesaler, and you just kind of want to break down the wickets of why this works, you can also go to buyerbeateruniversity.com and we can teach that out, and then you can find me there as well, man.
Beautiful. All right, guys. Well, this was the Wealthy Investor Podcast. We are out. Peace.
Boom, boom.